All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started now. So welcome back to all of you who've participated in our executive advisory group for the Fauntleroy Ferry Terminal project before. And I know we have some new folks joining us. We'll be doing some introductions here in a few minutes, but just really appreciate your continued participation really in this critical project for Washington State Ferries. And especially around the work that we're doing for the planning and environmental linkage process, as the team will refer to it as PEL. The team has been working really hard since the last time we met, really refining and updating the alternatives, as well as the screening criteria that we'll be using to hopefully get to a preferred alternative in next year. And our goal really is to ensure that we have a preferred alternative that all three communities can support and bring buy-in to. And so your input, and as we reach out to our community groups, just hearing your input and suggestions is very valuable to us in reaching that goal. Just want to let you know we're going to have lots of time at the end for discussion. But we have planned for some breaks in the presentation to do Q&A because it's really important, as I said, to get your input, your thoughts, and answer your questions. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Hadley Rodero, who's going to be facilitating our meeting today. Hadley?
Great, thanks, Patty. Again, my name is Hadley Rodero. I'm Community and External Relations Manager at Ferries. I'll be facilitating the meeting today and just guiding the discussion. Before we jump in, I just want to welcome any community members in attendance. It looks like we don't have any yet, but there's some that had registered to join us and they might be joining during the meeting. Community members are in listen-only mode and they don't have access to submit comments in the chat box. So any questions or comments can be shared by email with the project team, and we will share any of those that are relevant out with executive advisory group members. Haley, if you could just put that email in the chat box so anyone who joins can access it. And as a reminder, these meetings are recorded and will be posted on the project website so that the meeting videos are available for anyone who can't attend live to watch later. Here are a few reminders about the features we'll be using during today's Zoom meeting. There we go. So we'll be using the mute and unmute buttons. Everyone's doing a great job of staying on mute. We're all used to that now. If you want to talk to panelists and hosts, you can use the chat function, and everyone on the advisory group meeting and WSF staff are under panelists and hosts. If you want to send a chat to anybody in the audience, you can use the chat everyone function. If we're going too fast or you didn't hear something, please let us know in the chat or raise your hand. Use the raise your hand function and we'll circle back. And as Patty mentioned, we'll be pausing several times during the meeting for discussion. So you can use your raise your hand function if you have a comment, and let me know that when we pause, you want to speak. Before we launch into the meeting, let's do some quick introductions, and I'll start with WSF staff, and then I'll ask other attendees to introduce yourselves. And I'm just going to go in order, calling on folks that I see in my sort of participant list here in Zoom, starting with David Sowers.
Hi, good afternoon. David Sowers, Director of Terminal Engineering for Washington State Ferries.
Okay, Charlie.
Hello, my name is Charlie Torres, and I'm the project manager with Washington State Ferries.
Okay, Laura.
Hey everyone, Laura Levison-Miller, providing communications support for the project.
Okay, and Haley.
I find my mute, sorry. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I also support the project's communications efforts.
Okay, great. And let's go to the room there, starting with Marcia. We'll go around the table.
Hello, my name is Marcia Toland. I'm the environmental lead for this project.
Ed.
Hello, Ed Thomas. I'm the consultant team engineering lead.
Trevor Sharp, Operations, Construction and Design, WSF.
I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Patty Costello, Assistant Secretary for Washington State Ferries, and welcome again.
Okay, thanks, Patty. And John Vizina. John's still with us? I think most of you know John Vizina, our Director of Planning, Customer and Government Relations, who works with many of you on a daily basis. So now I'm going to go to Executive Advisory Group members and let you introduce yourselves. Kind of going alphabetical order here in my Zoom list, starting with Commissioner Garrido.
Charlotte Garrido, Kitsap County.
Councilmember Herbold.
Good afternoon, Lisa Herbold, District 1, West Seattle and South Park City Council. Thank you.
Okay, Ella Williams.
I'm Ella Williams, staff for King County Councilmember Joe McDermott.
Okay, Greg Spots.
Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Spots, Director of Seattle Department of Transportation.
Okay, Councilmember McDermott.
Hi, I'm Joe McDermott. I was King County Council member representing, amongst other places, both Fauntleroy and Vashon. I was about to claim that I was the only person here representing both, and then I see Emily and Joe here, so I better be careful with such assertions.
Okay, John Clausen.
Good afternoon, John Clausen. I'm the Executive Director of Kitsap Transit.
Thank you. John Laser.
Thanks, Hadley. John Laser, Seattle Department of Transportation. I'm the Director of Interagency Programs.
And Katie Lewis.
Hi there, my name is Katie Lewis. I am Representative Alvarado's legislative staff.
Great. Ralph.
Hi, everyone. Ralph Rizzo, Federal Highway Administration, Washington Division Administrator.
Thank you. And Representative Alvarado.
Hi, Emily Alvarado, State Rep in the 34th Legislative District.
Yes, and Representative Fitzgibbon.
Hi, Representative Joe Fitzgibbon, also representing the 34th District, which includes West Seattle and Vashon.
Great. And is there anyone I missed? My list is jumping around here. Anyone else joining? Okay, well, with that, we will continue with our meeting program. And here's a brief agenda so you know what to expect today. As Patty mentioned, we're going to give a short recap of where we've been, share an update on the planning process, and focus most of our time on gathering your input on the refined project alternatives that have been developed over the last year, and on some draft screening criteria, the criteria that WSF will be using to help select a single preferred alternative. And we'll be pausing after each of those sections to have discussion and comment. As a quick recap, I know it's been a long time since we've met last time. Based on what we've heard from the community and our advisory groups, we are no longer considering terminal locations elsewhere other than the current Fauntleroy Ferry terminal location. And our options in Fauntleroy that included remote holding, that had significant impacts to parks or required significant changes to local streets, have also all been screened out as part of the level 1 and level 2 screening process. When we met last time, we shared the level 2 really high level screening process that we'd done and got feedback on that. And that process narrowed us down to 2 really general alternatives, which are replacing the dock at the same relative size in the same location as it is today, or expanding the terminal in the same location while minimizing permanent major impacts to the nearshore environment in Cove Park. So with those 2 very broad alternatives, where we left off about a year ago, and the project team's been working really hard to sort of refine those alternatives and develop more specific alternatives, which we're looking forward to sharing today. Marcia's now going to talk through a little bit more about the project process and where we're going from here. Marcia?
Thanks, Hadley. Well, we appreciate your patience with us over the past year as we've navigated the planning and environmental leakages process and worked to refine some alternatives. This planning process involves collaborating with the community and our partners early in the project. As you can see, we began in 2021, and we see that our outlook takes us through 2029. During this time, we've developed a purpose and need for the project, conducted levels 1 and 2 screening alternatives, and now we're starting the level 3 screening process. And this is where we will consider criteria such as traffic conditions, cost estimates, permitting requirements, and ways to make the terminal work safer and more efficiently for everyone. We'll also study good to go and advanced ticketing. All of this work will help us identify a planning level preferred alternative for further NEPA environmental review. That's the National Environmental Policy Act review, where we will use specific methodology to evaluate the potential impacts on the built and natural environment. So we're working on an updated project schedule and plan to begin design and construction by 2027. So please note that there is some overlap between some of our tasks of these project phases, and that really indicates that there's some flexibility in the way the project would be delivered. We're working to refine the delivery approach, and we'll share updates at a later time. Please note also that this multi-year process will continue to include multiple opportunities for input from our advisory groups and from the broader community. So now I'd like to share with you some of the environmental context of the project area. This image shows really some of the key resources that are within the terminal environs, and these resources are what we considered in developing our alternatives, and they'll be resources that we continue to consider as we screen the alternatives. As you see right away, the most complex part of this project is it's a very constrained site. To the south, there's a rapid ride bus station that's along Fauntleroy Way, and it provides essential connection to and from the terminal. The terminal is bordered on the north side by King County Barton Street Pump Station, and then to the south by a Seattle Public Utilities property. The intertidal and nearshore habitats here include eelgrass and macroalgae near the dock, which offers habitat for salmon and other marine mammals. We conducted a recent video survey which confirmed there's no eelgrass in the area immediate to the end of the dock, which is caused by propeller wash, which created a scour hole, preventing macroalgae growth. Second, there's Fauntleroy Creek. After it exits a culvert under Fauntleroy Way Southwest, which is south of the dock, the current alignment flows under the dock to the north and then into Puget Sound. Fauntleroy Creek provides spawning and habitat for salmon and trout. The aging dock is mostly supported by creosote-treated piles, and together with other structural members, the dock contains approximately 1,000 tons of creosote-treated timber, which is a known pollutant of water and the marine habitat. The dense arrangement of timber piles supporting the dock influences the flow of tidal waters and Fauntleroy Creek, causing debris and driftwood to snag and collect under the trestle and on the shore. This makes it difficult for fish to pass to and from Fauntleroy Creek. Cove Park offers a public waterfront access and a narrow sandy beach next to the dock. And then the final feature is Captain's Park, which provides a public green space with bench seating across Fauntleroy Way southwest from the terminal entrance. So now I'll pass it over to Dave Sowers to walk you through the dock concepts.
All right, thank you, Marcia. So kind of want to hit on some of the common features of the alternatives that you're going to see, and then we'll go through the individual alternatives. These are features that are shared by all the alternatives, so I want to make that distinction here. And I'm going to let you kind of read through these yourself. I do encourage you to kind of follow along. We did send out a PDF of this report, and you can follow along. I think it starts on page 9, the various features that are common. But you've heard this in previous presentations about the seismic resiliency or lack thereof of the facility, the issues with climate change and the location of the dock in the water, and and then as well as the challenges we have with operations and making sure that we're providing access to all modes of travel to and from the terminal. So with that, I think there's some other things I'd like to add that we're doing, which includes at some of your and your constituents' interests. We're studying a good to go as an option to implement. We're looking at advanced ticketing. We're also going to examine overhead passenger loading. And one thing we've been working recently with SDOT on is improvements at the intersection, again, to improve safety and access. So those are some other things that we're going to be looking at along the way. Next, we're going to flip through the alternatives that we have been looking at. There are slight variations to each of these. So I'm going to ask Haley to kind of flip through these in rapid order to give you a feel for the changes and the differences between each alternative. And then we'll go back and we'll talk about each of the alternatives specifically. So just bear with us as we kind of do a quick slideshow through the alternatives. And once we've looked at those, we'll come back. And from these pictures, you can see slight variations in the length, the width, where the vessel is located. And you can see, I think I'll highlight what Marcia mentioned earlier, which is this dark blue area which is that eelgrass and microalgae beds on either side of the dock. So let's start with alternative A. So this is the first option that we're looking at. This replaces the dock at the same size as the current dock. So it's the same length, same width. It maintains the existing berthing structures that guide the ferry into position. And this alternative holds 76 vehicles, which is fewer than the current dock. And the reason for that is this concept it takes into account the access needed to provide space for large vehicles to turn into the dock, as well as added space for pedestrian walkways, bicyclist walkways, motorcycles, and vehicles in general. So we're compromising a little bit by providing those additional spaces, and it means the dock is 76 cars instead of the current dock, which is 84 cars. So this option, again, it's hard to see the difference when we toggle back and forth, but this option is the 84 car dock, which is the same size dock that we have today. And it is slightly longer in order to accommodate that and still maintain the design standards we have around widths and lengths for PEDs and bikes. This option, like is slightly longer, so there are new dolphins and wing walls. So you see this one reaches out a little bit further offshore, but it holds the same amount of vehicles as we have today. And so that's the important feature here. And when you go out today to tour the facility, we'll kind of show the differences in the widths as they change between these alternatives. A2 and A3 are variations on A1, and A2 involves implementing good to go technology, and A3 involves looking at advanced ticketing and how those technologies could be used to help us manage the operational side of the dock. So those are variations on A1, but in geometry, the docks are in all of these are the same size. So the next alternative B, now builds a longer and slightly wider dock which has more space for large trucks to turn into the dock, as well as lengthening the dock moves the ferry into slightly deeper water. This would allow the eelgrass and microalgae to regrow in and around the scour hole. And this option, it's important to note, holds 124 vehicles over the water downstream from the ticket booths, which is equivalent to the capacity on the vessels that serve this route, the Issaquah class vessel. So just remember that number, 124. You can see, obviously, it's a little bit longer than the previous version, but we do push that by pushing it offshore. We feel there's some advantage to the eelgrass kind of reestablishing itself around the dock. And then alternatives B1, B2, and B3 are variations on B, but slightly longer and different configurations with the lane. B1 is the same length, but includes an extra holding lane over the deeper water north of the dock. So this gets a little bit wider, but we minimize that impact on Cove Park and those environmentally sensitive areas closer to the shore. So it sort of hourglasses slightly. Now, and this alternative holds 154 vehicles on the dock. So this is a slightly larger dock than the 124. Alternative B2 creates additional lanes in a slightly different way, but still ends up with a 150 car vehicle dock. This is a more tapered design, and it's narrower near the shoreline. And then alternative 3 is slightly shorter than alternative 2 and includes one less holding lane, but the rest of the design features are the same as alternative B2, and this version holds 124 vehicles on the dock. And then finally, the last alternative I want to share is alternative C, and this dock holds 186 cars. And what 186 represents from our terminal design standards is 1.5 times the vessel class holding capacity. So 124 car vessel times 1.5 equals 186. And so this dock is narrow near the shoreline, hearing the feedback from the community, but then it widens as you get further offshore, and includes 2 shorter holding lanes for priority vehicles, motorcycles and bicycles. And what the intent of this option is that the staging that is largely now the larger majority of that staging on Fauntleroy Way, now all that staging, all 186 cars would be downstream of the toll booths and would be out over the water, and really would, with the exception of some peak seasons and holiday travel, should relieve a lot of the congestion of people staging on Fauntleroy Way and parked in front of Lincoln Park. So I know that was kind of quick. Hadley, I'd like to see if you could facilitate some Q&A now if people have questions about these alternatives, and I'm happy to go through the specifics again.
Sure, thanks, Dave. So any questions or discussion or clarification? Why don't we start with clarification type of questions, and we can certainly cycle back through the slides if that would be helpful. Anybody have any questions or want to see one of the alternatives again or learn more about it? Any comments about any of these alternatives or the range of alternatives? The idea here is we're looking at this range, and then we'll be doing further work to evaluate these alternatives and then selecting one of them as the preferred alternative to carry into the NEPA process.
Okay.
I do see a hand up, Councilmember Herbold.
Thank you. And so the process is when you choose a single preferred alternative to go into the NEPA process, do all of the other alternatives fall by the wayside because you are choosing one to do the analysis, or is there also analysis on a NEPA related analysis on the any of the non-preferred alternatives?
Marcia, do you want to address that?
Sure. Thanks, Councilman Herbold. In the NEPA process, we'll have analysis of the preferred alternative in comparison to the no-build alternative, which is the no-build is the existing conditions of the terminal as it is today. And we'll do that analysis to understand how well the preferred alternative matches up with our purpose and need for the project, and how efficient that is, how efficiently it operates, that it meets sea level rise and seismic requirements, and all the other requirements that we are considering with our screening criteria.
Marcia, do you want to talk about the type of evaluation you'll be doing to arrive at the preferred alternative? What additional analysis on all these alternatives?
Yeah, so this is the planning and environmental leakages process. And so heavily, the process we're undertaking now is a planning level 1, which means our understanding of the resources around surrounding the terminal are at a reconnaissance level, which is what the video survey was like, just confirming that macroalgae and eelgrass were present. But under NEPA, we have a more rigorous process where we will undertake an official eelgrass study, which is more fine-tuned and understanding the boundaries and the health of the eelgrass and macroalgae in that area. And we'll have a traffic model that is clearly based on the design of the future terminal and the intersection improvements that would occur at Fauntleroy Way and the terminal. We'll also go through the other elements that are required under NEPA as needed for this project, which include visual quality, air quality, noise, our parks and recreation properties, community enhancement or disruption, and environmental justice. These are the other areas of more specific study that would occur under NEPA.
Good. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Hurley?
Yes, it does. I think the question I would ask is there a scenario in which the preferred alternative, when compared to the no-build alternative, that the no-build alternative might include no-build type programmatic enhancements that the community has brought forward and suggested?
Well, the no-build actually is not a no action process. It actually means you're looking at a facility and we continue to maintain it to make it operational, which means we might replace some piling, but we would not be able to elevate it to a level where it would withstand or be able to sustain itself against sea level rise. And we'd only be able to do minimal maintenance to make it continue as it is in its current form. It does not include any other options that the community would request. Those options would be entertained with the preferred alternative.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I think maybe to reframe, I guess where your question is, that's what A2 and A3 that Dave mentioned is sort of the same size dock replaced up to current standards with those programmatic elements that I think you're talking about, good to go, and some of the other things the community have mentioned. Any other questions or comments or anything anyone wants to share at this point about this range of alternatives? Okay, well, we will move along then to discuss, Marcia, you're just going to discuss the draft screening criteria that will be used to begin to evaluate these alternatives and do that selection process we were just talking about. Marcia.
Sure. So it's separate from the slides. It's just, this is a brief look at our table of screening criteria. There's a lot of information here, so I'm just showing you the main components of it. So if you're following along, it's on page 27 of the alternative summary. You can see the multi-page handout there. So looking closer at it and towards selecting a preferred alternative, we'll use this for conducting level 3 screening. we've refined the screening that we used for level 1 and level 2. And the first column on the left-hand side shows the criteria we used for level 1. The second column in the center shows the performance metrics we are using to screen in level 3. And the third column shows how WSF plans to screen the alternatives using a yes, no, or medium, high, low type of result. So as you can see, our screening is much more detailed for level 3, using the specific metrics that are born out of the criteria we used at level 1. Do you have any questions?
Is there anyone who did not receive the alternatives memo that Marcia was just referring to that has this criteria in it? Okay. It's kind of hard to share on a slide, so we're not going to go through each individual line, but you have it in your PDF. Haley, you want to keep that up for a minute and we'll go through questions or comments on the screening criteria or the process for screening all of those alternatives to select a preferred? Or are there any of the criteria that you want to discuss in more detail or find out more about? Okay. If there's no further discussion on the screening criteria or questions about that, we can move along. We're moving very quickly through our agenda. So as part 2 of this meeting, to show you sort of in real life what these alternatives would look like and what the site looks like and how it operates, we're hosting a terminal tour today out at the terminal location. You'll have a chance to meet our operations staff, the terminal manager, terminal supervisor who runs the Fauntleroy terminal. We'll discuss in detail what the afternoon peak commute looks like. And then we'll also have a chance to see in real life what these different alternatives that Dave went through would look like on the ground. Charlie's going to be using markers to show you where those additional lanes would fall on the beach next to the terminal, and we'll see the Fauntleroy Creek and some of the other features that we discussed today. That on-site visit is at 3:30 p.m. We'll meet at the Barton Street pump station adjacent to the terminal and do a presentation and then walk the site, and we'll be able to see the peak afternoon sailing arrive at Fauntleroy and watch the customers get off and then reload for the following sailing. You'll see the 250 school kids that commute to Vashon Island get off the boat. That's always fun. And you'll just sort of see how the terminal operates and what some of these alternatives are intended to address. So with that, can I get a show of hands of who is planning to join us for the tour, just so we know who we're waiting for when we get on site, and make sure that we're ready. Looks like several of you. Great. Patty's going to be out there with us and a number of our other staff, so we can talk in more detail then as well and answer any questions you have about these alternatives. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave to talk about next steps and what's coming up as we proceed through this process. Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Haley. Yeah, looking forward to showing you guys more about this afternoon. That'll be great. I'm glad you're participating there. We have meetings coming up next week, and this was kind of the preview for that, which is you guys got the sneak look at the ahead for both our community advisory group on the 25th, and then our technical advisory group on the 26th. So those meetings are coming up. We plan to have more meetings after the first of the year. In the meantime, these are some of the things that we're going to be working on. We're looking at further traffic analysis, particularly with respect to intersection at Fauntleroy Way. We're continuing to do some environmental analysis. Again, this is all pre-NEPA, so it's all part of the Pell study. I want to highlight that. We're gonna, Ed's team is going to be doing some construction phasing and looking at how in this constrained site that we could actually build and replace the facility while it's operating. For those of you that watched Coleman Dock get reconstructed, you know that takes up a fair amount of space, and that's a very important part of how we continue this project, both how we design it and then how we build it. So we're working on that, and then we're going to continue trying to evaluate these other project elements. We talked about good to go and advanced ticketing. Again, looking at the intersection, and then another concept that's come up is looking at overhead passenger loading and how that would work as a way to improve our operational efficiencies at the terminal. So those are some things that we're working on, and we hope to share with you next time. We will also be taking a more refined look at this level 3 screening, which you saw a preview of that. And of course, eventually identify a preferred alternative and complete the Pell report. And those are things that are on track for us with our current schedule to be completed by the spring of 2025. So about a year, just over a year from now, we hope to identify a preferred alternative. But this will be a busy time for us as we narrow in on not only all this analysis, but begin to do that level 3 screening. So that's what we have coming up. I think that's about it, unless there's any last questions on anything that you've seen here today.
Any final questions for David or Marcia? All right, well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I know there's quite a bit thrown at you with the presentation. Just know that the team and myself are always available. You know, if something comes up next week that you have questions about, if you want a special briefing, happy to have that set up. Look forward to seeing those of you that will be coming out to Fauntleroy this afternoon. Thankfully, there's sun. So if nothing else, come enjoy the sun out by the water. And then if you aren't able to come out for the tour, we're happy to set up a specific tour for you, because I think it's really important to really understand the site and the conditions. And I think even just this afternoon, being able to see how the traffic queues up on Fauntleroy Way is important to see. So look forward to seeing you, and hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks for taking your lunch hour and spending it with us. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.